Novena Prayer to St Anthony of Padua for divine intervention in difficult cases. Day 1. Welcome to Timeless Prayer. At this very moment, as your heart opens to these words, heaven is not only watching, it is drawing near to you with love and intention. This is not a coincidence. Divine providence has aligned every step that brought you here, because today marks the beginning of a sacred journey. Day 1 of the Novena to St Anthony of Padua for divine intervention in difficult cases. I want you to know that you are not alone. Whether your spirit is weighed down by financial worries, the anguish of illness, the sorrow of broken relationships, or the silent pain that no one else sees, this moment has been prepared for you. You may feel like you're in the darkest part of your life, but remember, it is in the darkest night that the stars shine the brightest. And St. Anthony is one of those radiant lights sent to intercede when we can no longer carry our burdens alone. St. Anthony, known across generations and continents as the miracle worker, the restorer of the lost, the voice for the voiceless, is not just a saint of the past. He is a living witness of God's mercy working through prayer today. Dear soul, I invite you now to speak directly from your heart. Say, St. Anthony, I place my trust in you. Let those words pour from your soul, not as a routine, but as a cry for divine help and a declaration of unwavering faith. When you feel broken, faith isn't pretending everything is okay. It's holding on when nothing feels certain. Do you believe that God still works wonders through the prayers of His saints? Have you dared to ask for the impossible because right now, heaven dares you to hope again? St. Anthony, I come to you as someone in need, someone whose heart is longing for a miracle only God can give. And I ask you to intercede for me with the same love and compassion with which you serve the poor and the suffering when you walk the earth. Lift my prayer like incense to the throne of God. Touch the situation in my life that feels impossible, the problem I cannot solve, the pain I cannot speak of. St. Anthony, place it in the hands of our Heavenly Father, under your protection. I wait patiently, faithfully, for a miracle. And to you who are praying, don't be afraid to speak boldly to God in this novena. Remember, prayer is not about having perfect words, it's about having a surrendered heart. Ask Him to step into your story, even if your faith feels small. You don't have to feel worthy, you just have to be willing. As we begin this 9-day spiritual walk, ask yourself, what am I truly believing for? What would I ask God for if I truly believed He was listening? Speak it now, and let St. Anthony carry that prayer to heaven. This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a turning point. Hold on to hope. Trust in the process. Expect movement, even if you can't see it yet. And above all, believe this. Miracles don't always come the way we expect, but they always come in the way we need most. So today, with a heart full of faith and a spirit ready to receive, begin your novena with the certainty that you are heard, that you are loved, and that something is already shifting in the spiritual realm on your behalf. A 9-day novena that has moved mountains, opened doors that seemed permanently sealed, and brought healing where medical science declared defeat impossible. Welcome, beloved child of God, into this holy space of prayer and petition. You are not alone in your struggle. Across centuries, countless souls have turned to St. Anthony of Padua in their most desperate hours, and time and again, this faithful servant of the Lord has carried their cries to heaven with results that can only be described as miraculous. This novena is not merely a religious exercise or spiritual routine. It is a divine appointment, a supernatural intervention waiting to unfold in your life. Over the next 9 days, we will join our hearts, our voices, and our faith in one unified cry to heaven, asking for the intercession of St Anthony of Padua. St Anthony of Padua is known as the Saint of Miracles, not just because of his ability to intercede in lost causes or find missing things, but because he teaches us that no case is ever too difficult for divine intervention. When you turn to him in prayer, especially with a heart as open and willing as yours, something powerful begins to happen. The heavens listen, the saints join you, and God, in his perfect timing, begins to move. You are not here by chance. Your burdens, your fears, your deepest desires, they are all seen, heard, and known by God, and by invoking the intercession of St. Anthony, you are aligning yourself with centuries of faith, hope, and answered prayers. Now pause for a moment. What is the one miracle you're longing for right now? Say it aloud or whisper it in your heart. Is it healing from sickness? Is it the return of a loved one? Is it financial provision, a legal resolution, a job, a child, peace in your home, or clarity for your future? Whatever it is, I invite you to bring it honestly and boldly into this novena. Don't hold back. You don't need to pretend to be strong here. This is a sacred space for real emotions and real breakthroughs. And as you do, let this truth settle in your heart. I put my trust in you. O Lord, I seek protection under your care. I wait for a miracle. Not a vague hope, not a desperate wish, a miracle. Yes, even in this. Especially in this. Jesus once told a story in Luke 18 about a widow who refused to stop knocking on the door of a judge, demanding justice. Though the judge didn't fear God or care about people, he gave in because of her persistence. And Jesus asked, "Will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones, who cry out to him day and night?" Friend, your prayers matter, your persistence matters. Each day of this novena is not just a repetition of words. It is a declaration that you are standing on faith, refusing to let go until heaven responds. Can you feel the strength of that commitment rising within you now? And maybe, just maybe, the miracle you are praying for is only the beginning. What if God is not only going to answer your prayer, but also use this moment to pour out blessings far greater than what you dared to ask for? Have you considered that sometimes what we think is the solution is merely the starting point of a transformation we couldn't possibly plan for ourselves? God is not limited by our expectations. He is not late. He is not tired of hearing from you. He is ready. Are you? So as we begin this first day, I invite you to open your heart fully. Allow yourself to believe that St. Anthony will walk beside you, lifting your prayers with his own voice before the throne of God, and trust that, in time, you too will have a testimony to share. Healing will happen. Lost things, relationships, peace, joy, stability will be found. Doors once locked will open. Financial situations will shift. Court cases will turn. Hearts that were cold or far away will soften and return. And doctors, neighbors, and even you may stand in awe, saying, "Only God could have done this." And when those blessings begin to appear, whether during this novena or after, I urge you not to forget to return and give thanks. We will dedicate 7 days after this novena to Thanksgiving, not as a ritual, but as an act of power. Why? Because Thanksgiving multiplies miracles. King David knew this when he said, "Whoever offers praise glorifies me." And the Apostle Paul affirmed it, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Giving thanks is not the end, it is the fuel for what comes next. So I ask you now, will you enter these 9 days with faith that something is already shifting? Will you dare to believe that God hears you, and that through St. Anthony's intercession, you are stepping into divine favor? will you share this prayer with someone else who needs a miracle too, creating a chain of hope around the world? And most of all, will you stay the course day by day, trusting that this journey ends in transformation? Let this be your declaration today, Lord. I come to you through the intercession of St Anthony of Padua, not out of desperation, but out of faith. I put my trust in you. I rest under your protection, and I wait with expectation and patience for the miracle I believe you are already preparing. Amen. Now let us begin. Day 1 has started, and with it, your miracle is already in motion. Come, beloved soul, into this sacred space of Day 1, carrying the weight of your burdens but also a heart open to hope. You are not here by accident. No prayer ever reaches heaven unnoticed, and no tear goes unseen by the Father who loves you more than words can express. Today, as you begin this novena to St Anthony of Padua, bring your desperation, your exhaustion, and even your doubts. Yes, bring them all, because the God who hears your cry is not limited by your weakness. He is moved by your sincerity. This journey of 9 days is not simply a plea for help. It is a declaration of faith, a bold act of saying, Lord, I believe you can still move mountains in my life, and more than just the novena. The 7 days of thanksgiving that follow are just as important. For when we thank God in advance for what we believe He is doing, even before we see the results, we are aligning ourselves with a deeper level of trust, a trust that invites even greater blessings to pour forth. History has shown that when believers come together in praise and gratitude, heaven leans in and something shifts in the atmosphere. So, as you begin this sacred rhythm of prayer and praise, come not with hesitation but with confidence. The same God who split the Red Sea so His people could walk free, the same Savior who called Lazarus out of the tomb and turned simple water into the finest wine, is still alive, still working, and still full of miracles today. Do you feel like your situation is beyond saving? That maybe you've reached the end of the road and there's no way out? Then you are exactly where heaven loves to work best. Because impossible circumstances are divine invitations for God to show just how limitless His power truly is. St Anthony of Padua, whose very life was marked by deep surrender and divine encounters, now stands before God's throne, interceding for those in need. He knows what it's like to feel helpless, to cry out for direction, to long for change. But he also knows the miracle-working nature of God firsthand. Born Fernando Martins in Lisbon in 1195, St. Anthony's earthly walk was not marked by ease or comfort. It was marked by surrender, by bold faith, and by an unshakable trust in the providence of God. He believed not only in the possibility of miracles, but in the certainty of God's love for His people. And now, as he stands in eternal glory, his heart burns with compassion for you, for the pain you carry, for the miracle you seek. He is not just the patron saint of lost things. He is the intercessor of lost causes. He is the advocate for the hopeless, the silent strength for those who feel forgotten. How many stories have been told, whispered through tearful voices and lifted hands, of healings that defied science, of court rulings that reversed in the final hour, of bank accounts suddenly filled, of relationships that were shattered beyond recognition but somehow found restoration. These are not legends. They are real lives transformed through the intercession of St. Anthony and the mercy of our faithful God. If He did it for them, why not for you? Can you dare to believe again? Can you open your heart even just a little and whisper, Lord, I put my trust in you. I wait for a miracle. Maybe your heart feels numb from too much disappointment. Maybe you've stopped asking because you're tired of being let down. But what if the change you've been waiting for starts today? What if the very act of turning to this novena, even with a mustard seed of faith, is the beginning of your breakthrough? What if God has been waiting for you to return to Him in full trust, so that He can open the floodgates of favor and restoration? The question is not whether God can, it's whether you're ready to receive. And today, through the gentle yet powerful intercession of St. Anthony, heaven invites you to lift your eyes once more. Do not look down in shame or fear. Look up in hope and expectation. The pain you are in now is not the full story. It is merely the chapter before redemption unfolds. The loneliness, the illness, the financial struggle, the spiritual dryness, the broken relationship. They are all the canvas upon which God is preparing to paint His glory. This is the first step of 9. As you continue, day by day, you are not walking alone. Millions before you have walked this path and have seen God's hand move in ways that defy explanation. And so today, let your soul whisper boldly, I come with faith, I come with expectation, and I come under your protection. Dear St. Anthony, let this prayer rise from within you, not just from your lips, but from the depth of your longing. Let each word be a seed planted in the soil of trust, ready to bloom in God's perfect time. For the miracle you seek is not only possible, it is waiting on the other side of your hope. Now, will you choose to believe again? Will you stay open, even just for these 9 days, to the possibility that heaven is already moving on your behalf? This novena is your invitation to a divine encounter. Day 1 has begun. Let your heart be filled with patience, with trust, and with a powerful hope that transformation is coming. Heaven is not far from you. Heaven is listening, and St. Anthony is already carrying your cry to the one who holds all things in his hands. My dear friend, as you begin this novena to St. Anthony of Padua, know that you are stepping into a stream of grace that has carried countless souls before you. Souls who, like you, were desperate for change, longing for healing, and waiting for a miracle that seemed impossible. Children, once trapped in the chains of addiction, found freedom they never thought they would taste. Marriages that stood at the edge of collapse were not only saved but renewed with a love stronger than before. Broken hearts, empty hands, and weary spirits were lifted, restored, and filled again with hope. These are not fables from the past, not exaggerated tales meant to inspire. They are real testimonies, modern stories from ordinary men and women who simply refused to accept that their suffering had the final word. They dared to believe that God is still alive, still powerful, still attentive to the cries of His children, and they opened their hearts to His intervention through the intercession of St. Anthony, the humble friar who knew the Father's heart in an uncommon and intimate way. Anthony's effectiveness in prayer came not from titles or honors, but from his deep closeness to God, from his unshakable conviction that the Lord's love is so immense, so consuming, that He is constantly searching for ways to bless, to heal, to provide, and to restore. And you, right now, are invited into that same mystery of love. Remember what Jesus Himself promised in the Gospel of Matthew: ask, and it will be given to you, seek, and you will find, knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. These are not empty words, not pious decorations, but divine truths anchored in the very character of God, who cannot lie and cannot abandon His children. St. Anthony understood this with every fiber of his being, and that is why his prayers brought forth wonders that defied explanation. And now, as you begin this novena, you are called to stand in that same faith, to put your trust in God under the protection of St. Anthony, to dare to expect what the world says cannot happen. You are not here to convince God to notice your pain. He already knows. He already cares more than you could ever grasp. You are not here to persuade him that your situation matters. He has been watching with tender love since long before your trial began. What this novena does is far greater. It clears away the fog of fear and despair so that faith can grow strong within you. It carves out space in your heart so that divine hope can take root in the soil that disappointment may have hardened. It aligns your spirit with the Father's perspective so that you can recognize and receive the blessing He has been preparing for you all along. This novena is not about forcing heaven to move. It is about allowing your soul to move closer to heaven's will, heaven's timing, and heaven's gift. Think of St. Anthony. His prayers were never mechanical rituals, never cold repetitions. They were conversations of love, born from a childlike trust in the Father's goodness. And so now, I ask you, place your burden in God's hands with courage. Say to Him in your heart, Lord, I put my trust in you. I come under your protection. I wait for a miracle. Let those words not be mere whispers, but declarations of faith. Declarations that even in your darkest hour you believe that the same God who raised the dead, who multiplied bread for the hungry, who calmed the storm with a word, will act in your life through the intercession of St. Anthony. This is the essence of the novena you begin today. Not despair disguised as prayer, but hope clothed in perseverance. Not resignation to fate, but expectation of grace. Not passivity, but active faith that holds firm until the blessing comes. And so, my friend, do not be afraid if your situation looks impossible. Do not let the weight of the past or the fear of tomorrow rob you of peace. God is already at work. St. Anthony is already interceding. Heaven is already listening. In this sacred space of prayer, allow your heart to rise with confidence. The Father delights in blessing His children, and you are His beloved. Trust Him, cling to Him, and know that in these 9 days, as you pray with persistence and faith, the seeds of your miracle are being sown, and in God's perfect time, you will see the harvest. Think of St. Anthony during his earthly life when he interceded for others. He did not approach God timidly or doubtfully, but with the confidence of a beloved son speaking to a generous father. He carried the burdens of the suffering, the anxious, the poor, and the forgotten straight to the heart of God, knowing that heaven always bends to listen when faith cries out. And today, this same Anthony, now standing in the radiant presence of God Himself, is ready to carry your petition to the throne of grace. He sees your tears even when others do not. He understands the fears that you cannot put into words. He knows the urgency of your need, and His heart of compassion beats for you just as it did when He walked on this earth. Do you believe that He is near you at this very moment, ready to lift your prayers higher than you could imagine? But let me ask you something that might completely shift the way you think about what you are asking for during these 9 days. In the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 3, verse 20, St. Paul declares, "Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us." What does this mean for you, here, today? As you kneel in prayer, it means that the miracle you are desperately asking for may not be the end of the story. It might be the very beginning. Have you ever considered that the breakthrough you long for is only God's starting point, not His finish line? What if the healing you are pleading for, the reconciliation you are begging for, or the provision you are waiting for is just the opening act of a divine drama that will reveal His glory in ways you could never have pictured? What if the very crisis that makes you feel so desperate is actually heaven's setup for a testimony that will not only bless your life, but ripple out to touch your family, your community, and even generations yet to come. This is exactly the realm where St. Anthony lived and moved. He was not satisfied with asking God for small favors. His prayers were filled with boldness that opened the door for extraordinary answers. He did not simply request solutions. He sought transformations that revealed the Father's love, demonstrated the power of heaven, and drew countless souls into a deeper relationship with God. And this is still the way he intercedes for you today. When you entrust your intentions to St. Anthony, you are not just asking for a quick fix. You are opening the door for God to act in a way that could surpass anything you could dream. Can you feel the weight of that truth? Can you imagine how your current suffering could become the soil for a miracle that changes not only your life, but also the lives of those who will one day hear your testimony? Think about it. The miracle you will receive through this novena will not stop with you. Your answered prayer will speak loudly to people you may never meet in this lifetime. The healing in your body, the restoration of your family, the provision for your need, the peace in your mind. All of these will become evidence of God's goodness. Your story will inspire believers whose faith is fragile. Your breakthrough will ignite hope in those who feel forgotten. Even skeptics who doubt the reality of God may see in your testimony undeniable proof that heaven is alive and active in this world. Isn't that worth waiting, trusting, and persevering? For this is why it is so vital that you do not walk through this novena passively, but with your whole heart engaged. Every prayer you whisper, every act of faith you make, every tear you shed while calling on St. Anthony carries power beyond what you can see. Right now, as you listen and pray, you are not alone. You are part of a community of faith, a spiritual family that stretches across nations and languages, across Italy, Spain, Latin America, and beyond. We are united in one voice, one cry, one desire to see heaven break into our difficult situations and to wait together for the miracle that God will send. And here is something beautiful for you to consider when you invite others to join this novena. You are not merely passing along a video link or sharing words. You are expanding the circle of prayer, adding new voices to a chorus that rises before the throne of God. Every person who prays because of your invitation adds strength to the cry for mercy that will benefit not only them, but also you. Remember what Jesus said in Matthew 18:19-20 again. Truly I tell you, that if two of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. Do you see what this means when you choose to share this novena and invite someone else to pray with you? You are creating the very kind of holy agreement that Jesus himself promised would move heaven. Isn't that extraordinary? And it goes even deeper. When you invite others into this prayer, you are not only multiplying faith, you are stepping into the ancient tradition of the Church itself. The Bible tells us that when the early Christians faced persecution, they did not scatter in fear. They gathered for prayer, and the very ground shook with the presence of God. When Peter was locked in prison, the community prayed without ceasing, and an angel opened the doors to set him free. When the first believers needed wisdom, they did not rely on human opinions. They united in prayer until the Holy Spirit made the Father's will clear. Do you understand what this means for you? By joining this novena, you are stepping into the same current of power that has been flowing through the Church for centuries. You are not praying alone. You are linked to a history of faith that has moved mountains, broken chains, and brought heaven to earth in miraculous ways. So today, on this first day of your novena, let your heart be lifted with courage. Say it out loud if you can, St. Anthony. I put my trust in you. Under your protection, I place my needs. I wait for a miracle, not with despair, but with hope. Do not be afraid to speak your petitions boldly. Do not be shy in presenting your need. Heaven is listening. And St Anthony is interceding with the heart of a brother, a friend, and a saint who has never failed those who come to him in faith. Ask yourself right now, what is the miracle you are waiting for? What is the burden you cannot carry on your own? Will you dare to believe that God can do more than you imagine, that the answer may come in a way bigger, brighter, and more life-changing than you expected? As you pray today, remember this truth: your prayer is not a solitary cry lost in the noise of the world. It is a seed planted in faith, watered with tears, and destined to bloom in God's perfect timing. St. Anthony is holding your request before the throne of grace. Angels surround you, the Church prays with you, and heaven is already moving on your behalf. Stay faithful, remain patient, and above all, keep your heart open to the miracle that is coming. This is why the 9-day format of a novena is so powerful. It provides sufficient time for your faith to mature, for your heart to align with God's purposes, and for supernatural momentum to build in the spiritual realm. Each day of prayer builds upon the previous day, creating increasing intensity and focus that heaven cannot ignore. But there is something I need to address directly, because some of you may be wondering if your situation is too serious for even God to handle. Perhaps you have been told that your condition is terminal, that your finances are beyond recovery, that your relationship is beyond repair, that your child is beyond help. Maybe you have prayed before and felt like your prayers hit the ceiling and bounced back. Let me remind you of what Jesus said in Mark 10:27. Jesus looked at them and said, "With man, this is impossible, but not with God. All things are possible with God." Notice that he did not say, "Most things are possible." He did not say, "Some things are possible." He said, "All things are possible with God." The impossibility of your situation does not intimidate God. It excites him. Your desperate circumstances do not discourage heaven. They create the perfect stage for divine glory to be revealed. What seems like the end to you looks like a new beginning to the God who specializes in resurrection power. It is the canvas upon which the divine artist is about to paint something beautiful. Your desperation qualifies you for divine attention, and your brokenness creates the perfect space for God to move in a way that no one else can take credit for. But friend, let me remind you, answered prayer is not the end of the journey, it is the threshold. Too often, we think that the miracle is the final destination, when in truth, it is only the door opening into deeper communion, greater favor, and fuller joy with the God who gave it. That's why, after our novena, we will dedicate 7 full days to thanksgiving, not out of ritual, but as a sacred strategy. Because when we thank God, not only for what He has done, but for what He has promised to complete, we open ourselves to the full measure of His blessings. Just like the prophet Daniel, who didn't wait to see the results before praising God, he worshipped upon receiving the word, not just the outcome. In Daniel 2:23, his heart overflowed. "I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power." That is the posture we embrace in this journey, not passive waiting, but active trusting. And Paul echoes this truth in Philippians 1:6 when he declares, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion." That's a promise that you, dear listener, can cling to with all your strength. God is not done. This novena is not just about receiving a miracle. It's about awakening to the ongoing work of heaven in your life. Every prayer you lift now, every word you speak in faith, is part of something bigger than you know. So do not lose heart. Trust in the intercession of St. Anthony. Stay under God's protection, and with unwavering hope, wait for your miracle, because it is coming. Remember the promise of Jesus in John 14:13, and I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. You may ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it. This is not just beautiful poetry, it is a covenant, a binding word from the Son of God. When you pray through the intercession of St. Anthony, you are asking in the name of Jesus for the glory of the Father, and with the assurance that heaven hears you. But let me remind you of a powerful truth. The intercession of St. Anthony does not replace your faith. It strengthens it. It does not take away your personal relationship with God. It deepens it. The saints do not stand between us and God, but beside us, joining their prayers with ours so that together, our petitions rise with greater force before the throne of mercy. So today, come with confidence, come with bold expectation, and come under the protection of God who loves you beyond measure. Put your trust in Him, wait for a miracle, and believe that your impossible situation is about to meet His unlimited power. Are you ready to surrender your burdens? Are you ready to believe that God's grace is greater than the weight you carry? Then open your heart, lift your voice in prayer, and trust that St. Anthony walks with you as your faithful intercessor before God's eternal love. Beloved, I know you've been walking through a season that feels heavy, uncertain, and perhaps even silent, where answers seem delayed and the darkness feels louder than the whisper of hope in your heart. But I want you to know, right now, as you begin this first day of the Novena to St. Anthony of Padua, you are stepping into something far greater than what your physical eyes can see. There is a supernatural momentum building, invisible to the natural world, but undeniable in the spirit. And if your eyes could be opened like the servant of Elisha, you would see that you are surrounded not by despair, but by divine armies sent to fight for you. You would see angels stationed strategically around your circumstances, standing on mountains of fire, bearing the weight of your petitions and carrying them upward to the very courts of heaven. You would realize that while you feel alone, you are never abandoned. While you fear delay, God is already in motion. While you wait, heaven works. Saint Anthony is not only listening, he is moving. Even now, even in the silence, your needs are known, your prayers are heard. There is activity all around you that your eyes have yet to perceive. Resources are being called forth from corners you never considered. Doors that have remained closed for years are beginning to creak under the pressure of divine intervention. People you have never met are being stirred to help, to bless, to answer a need you haven't even spoken aloud. What you feel as stillness is actually the quiet tension of miracles preparing to be born. And while the natural realm still shows the evidence of hardship, financial burdens, health struggles, broken relationships, there is a heavenly rhythm building behind the scenes. And it is only a matter of time before your spiritual reality breaks through and transforms what you see with your eyes. You are not waiting for God to start working. He already has. You are not hoping He might take notice. He already has. You are not pleading for His love. He already gave it in full. Right now, right this very moment, He is working on your behalf. Not only that, but He has assigned one of His most powerful intercessors, St. Anthony, to carry your cries to His throne. Your voice, your suffering, your prayers, they are not small in heaven. They ring loudly in the courts of the King. And St. Anthony, the wonder-working saint known for finding what is lost, restoring what is broken, and healing what is wounded, is kneeling with you. His presence in this journey is not symbolic. It is sacred. His intercession has changed the lives of millions. And now, it is your turn. But perhaps you do not feel this. Perhaps your heart is tired. Perhaps your spirit is numb. Maybe you don't feel the stirring or the shift. Maybe your pain still screams louder than your faith. Maybe you're wondering if your words are enough, if your faith is enough, if you are enough. Listen to me. Dearly beloved, you are. Even if your faith feels no larger than a mustard seed, that is all it takes. Jesus himself told us that even the tiniest grain of real faith can move mountains. It is not the size of your faith that changes things. It is the sincerity. It is the persistence. It is the courage to pray again, even after the last prayer felt unanswered. It is the humility to fall on your knees, not because you are strong, but because you know who is. You are not being asked to perform miracles. You are being asked to believe in the one who does. The woman who reached out for the hem of Christ's garment didn't shout, didn't chant, didn't wave banners. She simply touched. In her pain, in her weariness, in her shame, she touched. That simple act of faith changed everything. It was enough. And so is your decision to begin this novena. Don't underestimate what it means to show up for 9 days in prayer. Don't underestimate what heaven sees when you kneel in weakness, not in strength. God does not need perfect words. He needs a willing heart. And if yours is open, He will move. So let your soul rise, even if your voice trembles. Let your heart hope again, even if it has been broken. Let your spirit believe again, even if the past has disappointed you. You are not repeating empty words. You are invoking heaven's attention. You are not just following tradition. You are awakening transformation. This novena is not an exercise in routine. It is a declaration of war against despair. It is an invitation for divine justice, healing, and restoration to step into your life and take up space. Do not measure the power of this moment by how you feel. Measure it by what you are choosing to do. Every whispered prayer is building something. Every sigh of surrender is laying a brick in the spiritual foundation of your breakthrough. Every tear, every ache, every silent cry, it is being gathered. And when this novena concludes, it will not be the end. No, it will be the beginning of a cascade of blessings, followed by a sacred season of thanksgiving. Because we do not stop at the miracle, we praise beyond it, we seal it, we protect it with worship and gratitude. And when that time comes, you will not merely be thanking God for what He did. You will be thanking Him for how He changed you in the process. You will see that your heart became stronger, your spirit more resilient, your faith deeper. You will understand that the breakthrough was not just about solving a problem. It was about transforming you into someone who walks with power, with discernment, with boldness. And in that thanksgiving, new miracles will begin, new doors will open. The thanksgiving that follows this novena is not an afterthought. It is the continuation of divine flow. When you give thanks, you are not closing a chapter. You are turning the page into greater blessing. So today, let hope take root again. Let patience be your companion. Let faith rise like dawn over the night of your troubles. This is your sacred beginning. This is day 1. St. Anthony walks beside you, God hears you, heaven is active, and miracles are on their way. Not because you earned them, not because you figured it all out, but because you dared to believe, to pray, and to keep going. You are not alone. You are under divine protection. You are on the brink of something new. So press in, lift your eyes, open your heart, and wait for the miracle, because it is already in motion.